She looked like nothing more than a tired waitress. Nobody in seat 17A knew her real name. But when both engines failed at 30,000 feet, she picked up the radio and said one word, Falcon. That single word made two F-22 fighter pilots go completely silent. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Maria Reyes sat quietly in seat 17A, staring out the small oval window at the clouds far below. She wore a plain gray hoodie and worn-out jeans with a small coffee stain near the knee. Her hands were rough, with tiny burn marks near her fingers from years of carrying hot plates and pans. Anyone looking at her would think she was just a tired woman going home from a long shift, nothing more. A young flight attendant named Claire walked down the aisle, checking on passengers before takeoff. She smiled at Maria and asked, "Can I get you something to drink before we leave?" "Just water, please," Maria said softly. "Long day?" Claire asked, glancing at Maria's tired eyes and simple clothes. "You could say that," Maria replied, not wanting to say more. Claire nodded kindly and moved on, thinking Maria was probably a waitress heading home after a double shift. She had no idea that the quiet woman in 17A had once flown some of the fastest jets in the sky, jets that most people would never even be allowed to see up close. 4 years ago, Maria Reyes was known by a very different name. In the Air Force, everyone called her Falcon. She had graduated at the top of her class from flight school and had flown dangerous missions that were never talked about outside a small circle of officers. She had guided damaged aircraft home when other pilots said it was impossible. She had saved lives that no one would ever hear about on the news. But one mission changed everything. During a rescue operation over rough terrain, a call she made under pressure led to the loss of 2 crew members. It was not something anyone blamed her for out loud, but she blamed herself every single day. Soon after, she left the Air Force quietly, without any parade or thank you ceremony. She moved to a small town, took a job at a roadside diner, and tried to forget the sky completely. Now she worked long hours serving burgers and coffee to truck drivers and tired families. Her boss, an older man named Frank, never asked about her past. He just paid her fairly and let her keep to herself. That was enough for Maria. She did not want to be Falcon anymore. She wanted to be nobody. Next to her on the plane sat a well-dressed man in his 40s, typing quickly on his laptop. His screen showed pictures of engines and technical drawings. "Sorry, I have work even during the flight," he said, glancing at her plain clothes. "Big meeting about aircraft parts in Denver." "What do you do for work?" "I work at a diner," Maria answered simply. "Honest work," he said, already looking back at his screen. "Must be tiring, though." "It has its days," she said, and looked back out the window. She could see the drawings on his screen clearly. Turbine blades, fuel systems, engine diagrams. She understood every single line on that screen, but she said nothing. She had learned to stay quiet about what she knew. A few rows ahead, a young mother sat with her son, a boy around 8 years old who kept asking questions about the plane. "Mom, how do we stay up in the sky if there's nothing holding us?" he asked, pointing out the window. "I'm not sure, honey. Maybe ask someone who studies planes," his mother said gently. Maria wanted to lean over and explain it to him, about lift and air pressure and the wings pushing against the sky. But she stayed silent in her seat, just like she always did. About 2 hours into the flight, everything was calm. Passengers were sleeping, reading, or watching movies. Then Maria felt it first, a strange vibration under her feet that was different from normal turbulence. She had felt this exact kind of shake before, years ago, in a jet that was about to lose an engine. She looked out her window and saw a thin line of dark smoke trailing from the wing. Her heart sank. This was not ordinary trouble. Seconds later, the plane jerked hard to one side. Bags fell from the overhead bins. A cup of coffee spilled across the aisle. The little boy started crying, holding tightly onto his mother. The captain's voice came over the speakers, tense and shaky. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a technical issue. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts immediately." The businessman beside Maria turned pale. "Is this normal? Planes shake like this sometimes, right?" "Try to stay calm," Maria said evenly, though inside her mind was already working through what she had just seen and felt. The shaking grew worse. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. People screamed and grabbed for them, some putting them on the wrong way in their panic. The young mother wrapped both arms around her son. An older woman a few rows back began praying out loud. In the cockpit, the captain and co-pilot were fighting to keep the aircraft steady. "We've lost engine 2, the co-pilot shouted. "Engine 1 is losing power fast. We're going down." The captain grabbed the radio. "Mayday, mayday, this is Flight 552. We have engine failure and are losing altitude. Requesting immediate assistance." Air traffic control replied quickly. "Flight 552, we copy your mayday. State your position and souls on board." 186 souls on board. "We are gliding, but we won't stay up much longer." On the ground, alarms went off in a nearby military base. Within minutes, 2 F-22 fighter jets were racing into the sky to reach the failing airliner. The lead pilot's call sign was Hawk, and his wingman went by Ranger. "Control, this is Hawk. We have the civilian aircraft in sight," he radioed. "Heavy smoke from both engines. She's losing height fast." Back on the passenger plane, fear filled the cabin. People clutched their phones, calling loved ones to say goodbye. Claire, the flight attendant, tried to keep her voice steady as she made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, if there is anyone on board with flying experience, please identify yourself right now. We need your help." Maria closed her eyes. She had promised herself she would never touch anything related to flying again. But she opened her eyes and looked around the cabin. She saw the crying boy. She saw the praying old woman. She saw the frightened businessman gripping his armrests. She could not let them die while she sat quietly doing nothing. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. "Ma'am, please sit down, it's not safe," Claire said quickly, panic in her voice. "I can help," Maria said. "I need to reach the cockpit radio." "Are you a pilot?" Claire asked, confused, looking at Maria's plain hoodie and worn sneakers. Instead of explaining, Maria walked steadily to the front of the cabin. She picked up the emergency handset and spoke in a calm, clear voice, the same voice she used to use before difficult missions. "Military aircraft in the area, this is Falcon requesting immediate assistance." There was a pause on the radio. Complete silence. Then Hawk's voice came back, full of shock. "Did you just say Falcon? As in the Falcon?" Every pilot who had ever trained in that region knew the name. Stories about Falcon's flying skills had been passed around training rooms for years, even after she disappeared from service. "This is Falcon," Hawk said carefully. "We heard you left the service. We didn't think we'd hear that call sign again." "I did leave," Maria said. "But right now these people need help, and I can give it. Patch me through to the cockpit." Every passenger nearby stared at her in disbelief. The businessman stood halfway out of his seat. "Wait, you're a pilot? A real fighter pilot?" "I was," Maria said. "Right now, I just want everyone here to get home safely." The connection to the cockpit crackled open. "This is Captain Reeves." "Who am I speaking to?" "Captain, this is Falcon. I'm a passenger with military flight experience. I'm here to help you land this aircraft safely." Captain Reeves had heard stories about Falcon during his own training years ago. He could hardly believe she was on his flight. "Falcon, we've lost both engines completely. Hydraulics are failing. I'm struggling to keep her steady." Maria closed her eyes and pictured the plane's systems in her mind, just like she used to during training. "Captain, what's your altitude and airspeed?" 16,000 feet, dropping fast. Airspeed is close to stall levels. Maria did quick calculations in her head. It was not good, but it was not hopeless either. "Hawk, find me the nearest runway long enough for a heavy landing," she radioed. "Already checking, Falcon. There's a military airstrip 35 miles northeast. Runway is over 10,000 feet long." "Perfect. Captain, turn to heading 030. We're taking her there." "That's away from our scheduled airport," Reeves said. "Trust me, Captain. We are going to glide this plane down safely, but you need to follow my instructions exactly." The passengers could hear parts of the conversation over the intercom. Slowly, the panic in the cabin began turning into quiet hope. The boy stopped crying and watched Maria with wide eyes. The old woman stopped praying and started watching too. "Captain, lower your flaps to 15 degrees, not full flaps, just 15, Maria instructed. "That will increase our descent rate," Reeves warned. "Yes, but it gives you better control at low speed. Right now control matters more than height." Reeves followed her instructions, and the violent shaking of the plane eased slightly. The cabin grew a little quieter. "Hawk, how does the approach look from your side?" Maria asked. "Falcon, you're lined up well, but coming in too steep. You'll overshoot the runway at this rate." Maria thought fast. "Captain, we're going to do a soft S-turn. 10 degrees left, then 10 degrees right, back to center. It will help us lose speed without losing too much altitude." "That's never been tried in a plane like this," Reeves said. "There's a first time for everything, Captain. It's better than crashing short of the runway." For the next several minutes, Maria guided the powerless aircraft through gentle turns, using nothing but her memory of aerodynamics and instinct built over years of flying. Passengers watched out the windows as the plane swayed gently through the sky like a giant bird searching for the ground. "Falcon, this is remarkable flying," Ranger said over the radio, watching from his fighter jet. "Just physics, and a little stubbornness," Maria replied calmly. The runway came into view ahead, lined with flashing emergency vehicles. "Captain, you're doing great. Landing gear down." "Without full hydraulics, I'm not sure it will lock properly," Reeves said. "Hawk, can you check the gear visually?" Maria asked. Hawk flew his jet close under the airliner. "Falcon, main gear looks down and locked. Nose gear position unclear." "That will have to do." "Captain, final approach. Keep her steady." Every person on the plane held their breath. The boy pressed his face to the window. His mother held him close, this time not from fear, but from hope. The wheels touched the runway hard. The plane shook and screeched, luggage falling from overhead bins, but they were down. Without engine power for reverse thrust, the aircraft was still moving fast. "Maximum brakes, Captain, everything you have," Maria said. Reeves pressed hard on the brakes. The plane slowed, but the runway was running out. "Hawk, what's beyond the runway?" Maria asked quickly. "Flat grass field, about 400 yards, then a fence." "Captain, when you reach the end, keep going straight into the grass. Don't turn. The soft ground will help slow us." The plane rolled off the paved runway onto the grass and finally came to a stop, just short of the fence. For a moment, the cabin was completely silent. Then someone clapped. Then everyone clapped. People hugged strangers and cried with relief. Maria quietly returned to her seat, exhausted, her hands finally shaking now that it was over. The businessman turned to her, eyes wide with respect. "You just saved every person on this plane." "I did what needed to be done," Maria said softly. Emergency crews surrounded the aircraft within minutes. Paramedics checked passengers, but remarkably, injuries were only minor bumps and bruises. Everyone would go home. Hawk and Ranger landed shortly after and walked straight to the aircraft, eager to meet Falcon in person. They were surprised to see a woman in a simple hoodie being treated like a hero by everyone around her. Hawk approached her, his voice unsteady. "Falcon, that was the most incredible flying I've ever seen. You did all of that using only a radio and your memory. You and Ranger did great work getting eyes on us," Maria said. "Ma'am, there's something you should know," Hawk continued. "My cousin was part of a rescue team you helped years ago. He still talks about the pilot who guided them home when nobody thought it was possible." Maria felt something she had buried for years slowly rising to the surface. For so long she had only remembered the mission that went wrong. She had forgotten about all the missions that went right, all the people she had helped bring home safely. News crews arrived at the base within hours. They could not believe the hero of the day was a diner waitress from a small town, someone the world had completely forgotten. A reporter asked her, "You saved over 180 people today using skills from your old life. Why did you hide who you were?" Maria thought carefully before answering. "Because for a long time, I only remembered my mistakes. I forgot the good I had done. I thought I didn't deserve to be that person anymore." Hawk stepped in before she could say more. "With respect, ma'am, you'll always be Falcon to us. What happened before wasn't your fault alone. You brought people home that day too, more than anyone expected." For the first time in years, Maria let herself cry, not from sadness, but from relief. The businessman who had sat beside her walked over, laptop still in hand. "I work for an aviation safety company. We've been looking for someone with real flying experience to help design better emergency systems for passenger jets. Would you be interested?" Maria looked around at the grateful passengers, the respectful pilots, and the little boy running toward her with his mother. "Are you really a fighter pilot, like in my book?" the boy asked, eyes wide with wonder. Maria knelt down to his level. "I was a pilot, yes. But more than that, I'm someone who helps people when they need it most. That's what really matters. I want to be like you when I grow up," the boy said. Maria smiled, a real smile, one she had not felt in a long time. "You can be anything you want. Just remember, being a hero isn't about never making mistakes. It's about never giving up on the people counting on you." Months later, Maria Reyes was back in aviation, not hiding in seat 17A, but working as a safety consultant, helping design systems that could prevent emergencies like the one she survived. She never forgot her time at the diner, and she never forgot the lesson she learned there: sometimes the most ordinary-looking person carries the most extraordinary story. And sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is stop hiding from who they really are.